Does it show recording on your side?
You want me to record on my?
No, is it showing that it's recording on your side?
Uh, no, but I don't think it does on my side.
Okay. Well, I have mine recording, so we're good. All right. Today, we have none other than a guru of time management and productivity himself, David Allen. David wrote the best-selling book, Get Things Done, which explains the management systems he created to live a manageable and a productive life. David, how are you?
Hi, Evan. I'm great. Thanks for the invitation.
Not a problem. Well, David, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, and then also even writing your book, because I absolutely loved listening to it on Audible. So, David, I got a whole bunch of questions here for you, but I want to start off with the first question. And the first question has to do with self-denial, actually. For those that are in self-denial, what are the warning signs that someone needs a better productivity system?
Stress, overwhelm, a sense of confusion, a sense of being driven by latest and loudest, a sense that there's more stuff they ought to be doing, that they're not doing, and and then all the reverberations of that, which could look like a lot of things. But basically, this gnawing sense of anxiety. I call it the GSA of life, the gnawing sense of anxiety that there's stuff you probably ought to be doing, you're not doing, you just don't know what it is. And so you're not fully present anywhere.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense, because I know I've definitely experienced anxiety and stress at different times from not being as personally productive as I want to. I know that.
And by the way, Evan, I do too. I still do.
Well, that
So,
makes me feel a lot better.
No, come on. I am fellow student with this. All I did was identify the game, and then how well I play the game is how well I play the game as well. But it's a really elegant and sublime game about what you need to do to be able to make sure that happens. And by the way, don't worry, that the people who are usually most attracted to what I teach and what I talk about are the people who are already highly creative, inspirational, aspirational people. They've just overcreated past what their own systems and their own practices can keep up with. So they've run out beyond their own capabilities.
Well, thank you.
Oh, come on. You're probably one of the more organized and focused people around. So people go, well, why did you get so inspired about a book like that? Because you're already kind of one of those guys.
That's funny. Well, thank you for making me feel better about myself. And as you're saying that, I'm looking at my office right here, and I'm like, no, you should see it. No, it's probably a little bit more organized than.
But at least you have a standard against which to hold that. A lot of people don't.
That's
so
a great point.
They don't even know that they're in a problem.
Yes,
right?
I would
So
agree
that's my marketing issue. I mean, for 35 years, I've been trying to convince people about something they don't realize they really need. Until they start to taste it. And once they taste it, they go, "Oh my God,
Right.
oh my God, how cool is this? Who knew there was this, possibility in this space available, amidst all this."
So for those that are listening that have no idea who you are, other than my introduction of you, what is the GTD methodology, which stands for Getting Things Done?
Yeah, it's quite simple. It's a matter of, first of all, stop using your head as an office. It's a crappy office. Your brain did not evolve to remember, remind, prioritize, and manage relationships with more than 4 things. That's new cognitive science proven data, right? So that's, kind of, this is a whole process about how do I build the external brain and make sure I put the right stuff in it so that my brain is freed up to be having space to focus on the most meaningful things in the most creative way and being present with whatever I'm doing. So it's about how to do that. And there are very specific best practices for that. It boils down to a pretty simple set of practices, which people all, if you want to get your kitchen under control, you do this. First of all, you identify what's off, what I have my attention on, what's not where it is the way it needs to be, right? So that's capture step. Step 2 is, once you've identified what's got your attention, I need cat food, I need a life, I need a business plan, I need my tooth fixed, whatever it is. Then I have to clarify what exactly am I going to do about that? What action step do I need to take to move this forward to closure? And if one action won't finish it, what's the project I need to keep track of till it's done? That's the clarify step. So first you capture, then you clarify. Step 3 is when you've decided the next action. I need to call the dentist about my tooth, but it's after hours, so I can't call him right now. Then you need to park some reminder of that phone call you need to make, so you see it when you have a phone and time. That's called step 3, organize. I need to park reminders of the things I need to be reminded of or need to have access to in the right context and the right time and space. That's step 3. So at first I've captured, then I've clarified, then I've organized the results. Step 4 is I make sure that I review or reflect on the contents of all that. If I'm going out to run errands, show me the list of 6 errands I've come up with, since the last time I ran errands, that I might need to do. Show me the next few things I need to talk to my life partner about if we are in a business of life discussion. Show me the things I need to bring up at the board meeting. Show me the stuff I need to do at my computer, the websites I've told myself I need to surf. So being able to then see a map and orient yourself based upon the content of what you've captured is the reflect and review stage. Then that could review all the way up to what's my life purpose, what are my core values, what's my vision of wild success in my life, what are the objectives I need to accomplish over the next year or two, what are the things I need to maintain, like my health and my vitality and my finances and my relationships. So those are the multiple horizons we've identified as the things that you have commitments about. And so that's a review and reflection process to make sure you're looking at the gestalt of all that. And then step 5 is you would then engage. So once you've captured, clarified, organized, and reflected on the contents of your life and your commitments especially, then you engage. You take a nap, you drink a beer, you go to your computer, handle the ugly email you've been avoiding. Whatever it is you decide to do at that point, it's come from a trusted place as opposed to just being driven by latest and loudest. So that's a very simple 5-step process about how you get any situation more under control and more focused and more free, to be thinking creatively and being present.
Right. Well, I can tell you've done this before because you hit those bullet points well. So thank you. And for our audience, I'm taking notes. So if you're in a place that you can take notes or reflect on those later, I would definitely suggest that. It's kind of funny because you hit on my next question towards the beginning of this, and it's your brain is for creating ideas, not holding them. Your brain is an your brain is a crappy office space, which it really is. I can't tell you how many things I've missed because I put it in my brain versus on my calendar or I wrote it down somewhere.
Or how many things you've thought about more.
Sorry, go ahead. I coughed.
Or how many things you've thought about more than once you didn't need to think about more than once.
Right. Absolutely. And, when I read your book, it was last fall. And for me, the rest of that question, it goes, there is a level of freedom that belief brings once you realize that your brain is not for trying to retain all that information. Talk to me about how one's creativity is greater with the belief that your brain is for creating ideas versus holding them. And I believe you used in your book or one of your speeches that by doing so, you create so much more brain bandwidth and ability to function. Dive into that for us.
Well, when do most people feel best about their work? A week before they go on a big holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Not about the holiday.
Right. They want to get as much stuff as they can done.
Out of their head, organized in the appropriate places, delegated to the right people, parked in such a place so they can hit the golf ball and be present, or walk on the beach and be present, or climb the mountain and be present, or whatever it is. I just suggest people do that on a consistent basis, not annually.
Right.
If you want to be, come on, Evan, and those of you listening or watching this, it really is, getting things done is not so much about getting things done as it is about getting appropriately engaged with your life and your commitments about your life so that you're present with whatever you're doing. That's the most productive state to hit a golf ball from, cook spaghetti from, tuck your kids into bed from, fire somebody from, whatever, is when you're present. You're not distracted. You're not being held hostage by commitments that you are not appropriately engaged with yet. So if I need cat food pops into your head more than once, you are inappropriately engaged with your cat. Right? So you don't have to go very far. And anybody listening to this, wherever your mind has gone since Evan and I have been talking that had nothing to do with what we were talking about, that's what I'm talking about. Where'd you go? You went to somewhere you're probably not yet properly engaged with, because otherwise it would not pop into your mind as something you need to still decide, do, think about, handle, or manage in some way. So,
Right.
you know, in a way, and that creative space, what you do with it is up to you. I can guarantee you that if you capture, everything that has your attention, clarify exactly what you're going to do about it, if anything, organize the results in a trusted place, and know that you have a good reflection and review system that will take a look at all that at appropriate times, I absolutely guarantee you it will create more space. What you do with that space is up to you. You want to use it for your spiritual practices. You want to use it to be more strategic. You want to use it to be more creative or more innovative or just more present with your kids or whatever you're doing. That's up to you. But I can guarantee you, with the many, many multi-thousands of people who've implemented my stuff over the last 30 years, that is invariably what happens. Is it creates space. But what they do with it is as individual as people.
Right. As you're saying that, it's funny because sometimes you learn things or you catch things and you didn't realize you learned them. I would say in the fall, shortly around the time of reading your book, without realizing it, I started making a conscious effort about the time that I've spent on my phone when I'm around my family, because it is really easy to engage in other things than being present in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, my kids are crawling around on the floor. One's doing his own thing. My wife's doing her own thing. It is really easy for me to be like, well, if everyone else is doing something, then I'll just be on my phone. And what I've realized is when I'm on my phone, and this might be a little bit of a double standard, or I shouldn't say double standard on my end, but I notice that my wife gets irritated when I'm on my phone, even when she's doing something else. And that's not a knock on her. It's just regardless of if she is or is not present, she realizes whether or not I am or am not. And so as someone who can be easily distracted by the technology and the rabbit trail that it brings, what would you say to someone who struggles with being present like I do in some of those situations?
Well, notice what has your attention. You don't have to go very far. If what has your attention is, I ought to spend more time with one of my kids, or let me pick something to be creative with them about what they're doing right now, so I can engage with them about what they're doing as opposed to just my own thing. If that has your attention, then you make that decision. But what has your attention about that? It could very well be that you need to go handle 16 ugly emails so you can get present with your family once the dinner's ready.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I don't have an answer to that. You do. But the way to ask yourself that question is, what most has my attention right now? And why does this have my attention? And what do I need to do to get that off my mind? Sometimes what you need to do to get something off your mind is just go do it.
Right.
Just go engage, in that particular thing. And sometimes it is, yeah, but I can't be present and engaging that because I got this business plan, or I got this thing I need to, that's sitting back there that's ugly, or I think it's ugly. And I'm going to have to sit down and, oh my God, think. I know, it's a tough,
Well,
that's a tough game.
you're absolutely right. And this is going to sound funny because even the opposite of that is true. Sometimes to get something off your mind, you need to engage it, as well as to make sure that you don't get something on your mind, don't engage it.
Right. Or park it somewhere that you'll see it at the right time and place. I mean, that's
Right.
a lot of what GTD is about, is like, look, we've all got a hell of a lot more to do than we can do. You just need to make sure that you've managed that inventory and got it out of your head. Because when you're still keeping your head as your office, that part of your psyche seems to have no sense of past or future.
Right.
So the 125 things that you actually need to do about all the open loops in your life are spinning around in there subliminally and showing up at random, odd, weird, strange moments that you can't do anything about. They wake you up at, your business plan or cat food will wake you up at 3:00 in the morning when you can't do anything about either one of them. Right.
Oh, that's so funny. That literally was my yesterday night. So, I engaged in watching a message from a pastor by the name of Craig Groeschel, And he had a series called Habits, and I watched the last message in his series around 10 at night. I'm in bed, had my headphones on, which blue light, trying to go to bed, not the best time to engage in technology. But, as someone who's hungry for knowledge and personal growth, I was like, you know what? Let me feed my spirit. That was the wrong time to feed my soul because it engaged my mind so much that when it was done at 10:30, I couldn't fall asleep until 2, knowing I was waking up at 6 to get my kids ready and out the door so I could be here for our interview. And so what I realized is I have 4 hours to sleep because I engaged in activity that I thought was beneficial, that I thought was good, but in reality, it kept me from doing what I was supposed to be doing, which was sleeping.
Sure. Well,
Okay.
one of the best ways to procrastinate is to find something that is semi-productive.
Ooh, write that down. Okay, repeat that one
Well,
more time
look,
because I'm going to write that down.
one of the best ways to procrastinate is find something that you can still convince yourself is a productive thing to do, but it's not the thing you ought to be doing. I mean, you could just take drugs or do all, or you could, get drunk and fall in the gutter as a way to avoid what you want to do. But the seductive thing is, oh, wait a minute, I need to clean the toilet. Oh, wait a minute, what I really need to do is to go clean that drawer. Or what I really, my wife discovered when I was, writing the first edition of Getting Things Done, which by the way was one of the most stressful things I ever did, was write a book about stress-free productivity. But
That's funny.
She discovered that she was married to a completion machine around the house. If I would, because she would just throw stuff into my in tray. Oh, we need to do, and I would go, oh yeah. Instead of writing the next chapter, I really need to go, weed the garden, or I really need to go buy this stuff at the hardware store. I really need to go, because she just discovered all she had to do was just put stuff in front of me that would be a way for me to avoid what I really needed to do, but would get a lot of things done she wanted done.
Right. That's really funny.
She's a smart lady.
not just to do that. What you're saying is so true, because as a real estate agent, I'm really good at what I do. However, some of it I don't like doing. I don't like making cold calls to for sale by owners or expired listings. However, that's how I built my business. And it is so easy for me to find something else that seems productive to do outside of doing what I need to do. And so when you said that, the best way to procrastinate is to find something else productive to do, that resonates so much with myself that I'm just,
hey, I'm just speaking from experience. I still do that. I still have to work with myself to say, wait a minute, David. Okay, I know you don't do it. And what's strange is that sometimes that is the best thing to do, is go clean the dishes, go vacuum the floor, go clean that drawer, because you're not ready yet to think at the creative levels you need to think at to be able to do that. So that's a very fine line. That's how well do you really know yourself? How well do you really recognize which of those is the avoidance?
Can you repeat that? The internet cut out.
Yeah.
When you said ready yet.
So you need to be aware is that of doing something semi-productive may be the best way to then tackle the most productive thing you need to do, because you're not really ready yet. There's still a part of you that needs to work on it, that needs to have the right timing to sit down with this. And you need to stay engaged with some other things to give you, the time and space to think about the thing you really need to tackle. So that's tricky business. I still don't know that I know myself that well. But what I'm trying to get away from is making a hard and fast rule that deciding to do something that you just feel like doing because there are other bigger things that you need to do may not be the worst thing to do.
Mm.
That makes sense?
It does. It does.
Right.
So for someone like myself who is not organized, not detailed oriented, I mean, it's just not natural for me. On the DISC personality test, I am a high DI or ID. I can switch back pretty easily.
Oh, you poor creative. You're the most stressed of the disc models there are.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yes, you are. No,
What?
because you want to get it right, but you want to do it yourself. Right.
Um,
And
I
make
wish I
sure
could
that
hire stuff off, but I
no,
don't.
no, I know you don't, because you need to control the outcome, but
Yeah.
you also, need to control the details. And those
Yep.
are two different parts of your brain. So you're sort of almost bipolar, if you will.
Ooh, that makes a lot of sense. Um, the lowest part is my C, and what's funny is it's probably out of all the disc personalities early on in my life, it's probably the one that the type of individual that would most frustrate me. But now that I've grown and matured a little bit, it's probably one of the personality traits that I wish I had more of.
Well, wait a minute. You told me, I thought said you were a high D and a high C.
No, 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 no. DI or
Oh, a
ID.
DI. Oh, you're one of the crazy makers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, no,
Got
no,
it.
no,
I'm
not
sorry.
nice.
I misread what you said. I misheard it.
No, you're
So,
good. I wish I had more C. I don't.
yeah.
And because of that, there are gaps in my ability to be detailed oriented or to implement strategies and systems and to follow up with them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll spend time, my creative side will spend time to create a system and I never use it. And going back to it's good, it was productive, I should have
Sure.
that, but then I never use it and therefore it was a waste.
Sure. Well, that's why, believe me, that's why GTD is oftentimes very attractive to the crazy makers, simply because you realize how much more freedom you'd have if that part of your life were handled. The problem is it feels like getting down to that level of details feels like you just jumped into quicksand, and it feels like everything moves in slow motion, and some part of you is moving much faster than that. So
Right.
you have to slow yourself down and learn to train yourself. That, wait a minute, I have to sit down and focus on being able to do that. See, you had to do that to learn to drive the car. You had to, I don't know what else you do, but you had to learn that to do anything. You had to break it down. Wait a minute, I've got to stop. I have to learn this dumb little simple behavior that once I get the behavior down, then I'm freed up to move up to the next level of behavior that I can get to, so that at some point you can drive formula racing.
Right.
Or some version, aside from just learning how to not hit something and park a car, somewhere along that. But just in the same way, learn to cook spaghetti, learn to do anything.
Right.
The French chefs would talk at mise en place. I mean, if you're really going to be creative in the kitchen, you damn well better have everything ready to begin with. Every ingredient, every pot, every pan, everything you need, because once you blow the whistle, it's going to get nuts.
Hmm.
Right? So you need to be ready for nuts. So as I say, you can be most creative when you have the freedom to make a mess. But if you're in a mess, you can't make one.
Say that again, that first part.
You're most creative when you have the freedom to make a mess.
Huh.
But if you're in a mess, you can't make one. See, if you were to, come on, Evan, if you were totally clean, everything was clean, you actually had nothing on your mind right now. It was all decided. It was all parked. It was all truly, you had really sort of black belted, the GTD process. And there was nothing on your mind right now. Where would you go? What would you do with it? And that creativity, then you'd have the freedom to come up with, oh, here's a cool idea. I could bet my real estate business, and here's some people I'd really want to talk to. And here's another way I could approach all that or whatever, because you'd have the freedom to have that bandwidth to be thinking at that level of game. But you don't have that freedom when you're in that mess.
Right. Absolutely. And there's a level of peace that I feel like I've learned. Let me phrase that. There's a level of peace I've realized in having that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
When I do have my ducks in a row and when I don't have my ducks in a row, there is a level of peace. And tell me a little bit more about how this creates peace and structure in a person's life.
I don't know. Do you have a Christian orientation?
Yeah, I do.
Well, Jesus at some point said something like, the whole Christ action actually is completion.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being accountable sort of for your life and the things that you've put into motion and how you manage all of that.
Right.
And so, come on, it really is becoming conscious about what I put things into motion, and then where do I point my creative energy. So one of the things I sort of recognized, I didn't make it up. I just recognized that it seems to be there are two key things that we're accountable to ourselves to do, here on our existence on the earth. One is be accountable for what you have created in the past. You'll eat it. Whatever commitment you've made, if you haven't completed it or renegotiated it or undone it, you got it. It's going to sit with you. Just the nature of our human consciousness does that. And then you need to be accountable. You can't stop creating. You're creating 50,000 times a day because that's how many thoughts they've assumed you'll have today.
That's a good
So
point.
you're focusing and you're creating all the time. What are you focused on? How well you want to digest lunch? How well you want this interview to go? How well, come on, but you and I both have an infinite number of things we could be focused on in a positive way that's going to produce, a more creative, karma-free kind of result.
Right.
That's that as opposed to, oh, this is terrible, this feels awful, I can't do this. So the negative, worrying, victimizing, point of view is simply reacting to the creations that you've created and involved in without being appropriately engaged in them.
Right.
You kind of, no light at the end of that tunnel, except there's a light at the end of every tunnel. That if everybody kind of gives it all up, gives it over to the bigger stuff.
Right. Well, you're kind of hitting the nail on the head yet again. Let's just assume you hit all nails on the head right now, because I keep saying that a lot.
Okay. Well, come on, I'm 73, Evan. When you get there, at a certain
you got
point,
a lot of life experience to pull from.
You got a bunch of nails that are already, you kind of have learned to hit them.
As we're talking, I'm having a lot of self-discovery, because about a week or two ago, I realized that I have high anxiety. I never realized that before, but in stressful moments, actually, when I took my son to the ER a couple weeks ago, and it so stressed me out, it made me sick. And we thought he was having an appendix attack. He's fine. He's okay. No appendix attack. He had a really bad gas lock, but he was throwing himself on the floor, screaming, holding his stomach for a couple of days. So I finally was like, all right, let's take him in. But I realized in stressful situations, I tend to get anxiety and I'm unable to be present. And I thought that I had to just deal with my anxiety. But as we're talking, I'm realizing, okay, my anxiety is causing me not to be present. Why am I not able to be present? Now I need to go do some more discovery and find out, I think it has to do with my D personality, like we're talking about, because I have control issues. If I can't control something, that makes me anxious.
Right. Well, you didn't really clarify exactly what was your desired outcome right on the front end.
Right.
Right.
Well,
then what's the next action to move toward closure? That's all.
Yeah.
So control is the master human addiction. People are killing themselves and each other right now just to get a sense of, or maintain a sense of psychological control. It's that powerful a driver.
Wow.
So the problem is when you feel out of control, some part of you gets really way out of control. But the way you create control is not to change the situation. It's to accept the situation and then have a desired result and a next action. So, that's why the GTD can be so transformational and powerful once you start to train yourself with that mindset. See, one of our statements is there are no problems, only projects.
Right. Ooh, say that one more time.
There are no problems, only projects.
I'm writing that down right now.
Anything you have identified as a problem is something that some part of you assumes could or should be better than it is. You're just not engaged in making it so, or finding out whether it can be.
That is so good.
Right now, it gets tricky because you get your emotional buttons pushed. Your kid's lying on the floor and screaming. Come on, I would too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
understood. So give yourself a break, but training yourself, it is a cognitive muscle to actually train yourself to go, wait a minute. Wow, something's off right now. What do I want to have true? What do I need to do to find out whether it can be changed or not? And you get back in the driver's seat. So you were in victim mode. Sorry, but you were
Right.
in victim and reactive mode. You weren't in the thinking mode.
Hmm.
So, people think that they're thinking, but thinking is very rare. Thinking means I actually sit down and think about something as opposed to just react mentally about it.
Right.
So there's mental reaction, which is, yes, you're having thoughts, but they're mentally reactive. They're not real creative thoughts. What do I need to have true now? And so just thinking, outcome and action thinking, which is the core of GTD, is the core of productivity. What am I trying to have true right now? And how do I allocate or reallocate my resources or my attention to make that happen?
There is so much freedom in what you just said. And I cannot wait to go back and re-listen to this and allow that to really sink in.
Well,
Because,
Evan, I'm a freedom junkie. I mean, the freedom is how I created all of this. I hate being strangled by my own worries and problems and things I can't deal with. I love the idea of clear space.
right.
You know,
Kind of talking about my son, it kind of goes into my next question. Life has a level of priorities. And, when I was taking my son to the hospital, just so you know, I dislocated my knee and tore my my MPFL, which is the ligament that holds the kneecap to the femur. But my son was in such pain, he couldn't walk. Now, when I'm trying to take him into the ER, I wasn't going to leave him in the car, go get someone to come get him. Regardless of what my knee was, I carried him into the hospital because I thought he was having an appendix attack. I didn't realize it was just gas that was locked in his stomach. But what I realized is not only with work, but with my own health, with my own physical safety, my son became a higher level of priority than anything else in that moment. And so it was very easy for me to prioritize what was most important, which was him, and
sure.
to accomplish that. Now, not every priority or every quick change in priority is that simple. For I think a parent, it's more in what's the word I'm looking for? More natural to be able to put your child first. It's more instinctive. However, when I get into my business or other things, sometimes changing the level of priority or designating the right level of priority is a little bit more difficult. So,
Oh, are you kidding? It's a lot more difficult.
right.
If anybody goes and looks at my first TEDx that I did in Claremont in California, I talk about the fact that many times you become more relaxed in a crisis than any other time.
Explain
Because in a crisis, it forces you to focus on what?
the crisis.
No. In the crisis, you focus, what was the first thing you were focused on?
Getting my son.
Get your kid okay. Right?
Mhm. You're right.
Right. And then what was the first action step you took?
Get him in the car.
Right. So these were very clear. And what did you do with the rest of your life when that was going on?
I waited and I sat with him.
And you put it on hold.
Oh, wait, sorry. The rest of my life. I thought, okay.
The rest of your life.
Everything else went on hold.
Everything else, taxes, tires on your car, hire the VP or not, come on. All
Right.
that put on. So all you did was focus on a specific outcome. You got a very specific next action. And you put everything else on hold and renegotiated all those agreements with yourself. So you had one simple focus that put you in your zone.
Hmm.
But you just had to wait for a crisis to put you there, but you don't have to. The problem is if you're not in a crisis, you have a bigger one because all the demons at the gate come rushing through the gate. All those things you talked about my business and what should I think about it or whatever. Oh my God, now you're not in a crisis. Now you have a bigger one. Right?
Wow. Wow. that reminds me of something that a professor once told me. I was an individual that struggled with academics, and in college, at the beginning, because I was struggling, I was like, whatever. I didn't give it much care or attention. And a professor told me this. He goes, Evan, this is going to be difficult and challenging regardless of your situation. But you get to choose, is it going to be sorry, I'm going to have to reemphasize this and read it. I had a teacher in college tell me that when it came to academics, for me, when it was a challenge, either I would struggle from the procrastination and having to dig myself out of the hole, which will be as hard as just getting things done the first time and reorganizing it and redoing it until I perfected what I wanted to hand in. And that reminds me of a lot of what you said in the context that it's going to be challenging regardless. It's just, do I let all the demons wait and then I get in a spot where it's a do or die situation, or do I go through the pain of just doing it the first time?
Right. That's why, a good friend of mine, Charles Duhigg, who wrote a great book called The Power of Habit, and he talks about building keystone habits. Keystone habits don't change all your habits. Find the one or two that if you change those will help all the others kind of fall into place. For many people, that's exercise or meditation or something like that. Then does a lot of the other stuff. Mine relative to GTD are get to the bottom of my in basket is one of them. Because believe me, there are so many things I would love to avoid, Evan, to have to make decisions about, to have to deal with, to have to grapple with, oh my God. But because I now have the habit of having an empty email in basket and an empty physical in basket, whenever these things show up that are potentially ugly and challenging to deal with, I get myself to then jump into them and get those things decided and clarified and organized and in the appropriate place. So I can get back to what I'm used to, which is that zero in basket. So, if I ask myself, if I just tried to train myself to do all the hard stuff, it's like, oh, come on. I'm too lazy to do that. But once I had the habit of making sure I had a clean deck about all the things that have come into my world, it then forces me to sit down and grapple with, as your professor was talking about, the stuff on the front end, not on the back end.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, most people spread their life around without dealing with it. They create what I call stacks. When's the last time you opened an email and went, and closed it up again, but it's still there?
Yes.
When's the last time you picked up a piece of paper or note that you made or some piece of mail you got and you went, and you left it there? Or even worse, you put it on the side of your desk or on the floor or somewhere as opposed to in your in basket, which would force you to make that decision again. And so then you mounted up this huge inventory of broken agreements with yourself.
That sounds like my kitchen countertop with a lot of mail on it.
Yeah.
Like
most people's in baskets at home are the first flat surface inside their door.
It is.
If that got out of control, then that morphed over into the counter between your kitchen and your dining room. And if that gets too big, it's going to move over and take over half your dining room table.
It is. I can't wait for my wife to listen to this episode because not that she's the procrastinator in this. I bring stuff in and then I put it there. Then I go look. See, this is what I do. When everything comes in, I look for the junk mail first and I get rid of it. But the stuff that's important,
me too.
I sit down, but I don't take the time to look at.
Yeah, it's called thinking, Evan. I'm sorry. So I don't mean to be the harbinger of bad news, but you actually have to think to get stuff off your mind.
That's a great point. So here's my next question for you, / maybe a little bit of a story. And because I'm the host, I get to ask whatever question I want.
Sure. And I'm the guest. I get to answer it any way I want.
Right. So. Or you can just hang up on me. It's up to you. But this is for my wife. She recently became a manager within her line of work. She would write online training and curriculum for a bank. And now she's overseeing a department whilst kind of still doing some of those things. She says she gets 20 emails an hour of requests for her to do or change or add or to help someone else out with their problems. and that's a part of her job. But what happens is there's so many requests that it also takes away from getting her main jobs and tasks done. And she's playing this balancing act in her mind where she's answering some of this, getting some of this done. She's doing both kind of simultaneously. And you and I know like multitasking just really doesn't exist. So how does someone like her in her situation where she is responsible to help other people, but has a lot of her own tasks that she still has to get done? What advice would you give my wife to manage people and to manage her own tasks and to allow herself from not getting distracted and pulled away from what she needs to do?
Well, I'll have to move into more of a consulting frame of mind.
Should I get out my checkbook?
Yeah, I'll send you a bill.
Okay,
Don't worry.
thanks.
What's her role? Has her role been well defined? Are her roles? Most people have more than one role in their companies. What's the role? It's not the person. What's the role? What's the purpose of that role? What's it supposed to produce? Right? And then what accountabilities does that role have? So customer service, if that's your role, great. What accountabilities do you have? How often and how frequently within what time frame do you need to respond to customer requests? Right? Is that clear?
Right.
If those are not clear, you got an OD issue, an organization development issue. You don't have a productivity issue. You got a definition of role issue. See, there's one organization that never has fires and crises. It's called the fire department.
Oh, wow. Keep going. That's good.
Why? That's their role. And apparently 95% of their alarms are false. Talk about a reason to be pissed. Like, oh my God, it's probably not real. Forget it. No, they don't. That's their job. And when they're not handling a false alarm or a real one, what are they doing? Getting ready for the next one. Right? That's their job. That's what they do. So you can't complain about there are no interruptions. There are only mismanaged inputs. So do you need that input or not? So is that clear to her? Is that part of her job or not?
Right.
And if she's not clear, somebody better be. So who does she need to go to? What's her project called? Get clarity about job description and how I handle these kinds of things. Great. What's the next step? Talk to boss, or I don't know, whatever it is. So there is a GTD way to approach that called, does that have her attention? Well, great. What's her desired outcome? Feel comfortable about her job and how she's responding to all of these ad hoc things that show up in her life. Great. What's her next action? So GTD gets pretty subtle. As I say, there are no problems, only projects. So, if she's expressing this as a problem, what's the project?
Right.
Get resolution, get clarity, get closure, whatever. And she may or may not be able to do anything about that, but then she can decide whether she still wants that job or not.
Right. Yeah. Which she does because she just, took it.
Did that all make sense? I don't mean to be too brutal, but you asked. So.
No, it does. And I don't think she would take it as brutal. I'm excited for her to hear it because I think it's also managing expectations because she has essentially one job with two different tasks, and one task interrupts the other. And so it's how to manage those interruptions.
I would back up and say, what's the accountability, not the task? Because the accountability defines the task.
Okay.
Why does she have that task? That task is supposed to produce what that she's accountable for?
So that task would be for her to create the training and answer any problems or come up with resolutions with this specific department that she's in charge of. So
her accountability is for the production of these kind of things and managing all the details about getting from here to there in the process. Okay. Correct. Yeah. And what's the other thing you say is counter to that?
She has, her own managers that puts different tasks on her outside of from what I'm understanding, the primary role of her taking in charge of the department. And so whatever her upper manager would ask, that's what she does. And, she's a couple weeks into it, so things could change quite a bit over time.
Yeah. No, oftentimes that's, these things are not clear right to begin with. You get clarity after you find out where's the tension. What do I have attention on? How do I resolve that tension? So it's an ongoing conversation. And, I've been doing this for years in our own company. So it's not all, it should not be expected that be all that clear. What should be expected is that she's in an environment safe enough to have these conversations.
Mm, that's good. Well, I'll leave that question there because I think that was a good end note. I have 3 final questions for you. One,
Okay.
will you adopt me?
What's your purpose?
In my life or
For being adopted?
Oh, I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, I know, but I'm giving you a hard time too. You asked that question because you want something. What's the purpose of that? Why would you even ask that question?
Ooh, great question. Here, I thought I was just trying to be funny, but there's probably a deeper issue. Well, honestly, I learned a lot from you, and so I really enjoyed this time with you. So I guess that would be one of the purposes,
Was to what?
was to learn from you. And so I
In what
enjoyed
in on a continual basis, or to be, or whatever, in some way, shape, or form?
Sure, this shows the mentee, so let's call it that. I would love to learn from you on a continual basis. It doesn't have to be every week, obviously, but if when you have the time available, you have a wealth of wisdom and knowledge that I would just love to learn from you and bring value to you and share and learn your message more.
How do you think you could create that?
Can you rephrase that? I'm not sure I quite understand.
So what's your project?
My project is, this might sound very vague because I put a lot of emphasis in my life to do something for a long time. But as of the last 8 or 9 months, my emphasis has more so becoming the person that I want.
Well, you maybe, if I can help or give you a little bit of a tweak on the reframe of that you may be focused more on the how, not the end result. You want to be playing this way. You want to be engaging with people that are like this, that keep you inspired, keep you sparked, keep you whatever.
Yes.
Right. So that's not necessarily a goal. It's more of a standard. It's more of a principle. It's more of a way to play, not an end game that you're going to ever end. You don't ever end grow sales. You don't ever end keep healthy. You don't ever end, keep my family safe or whatever. Those are areas of accountability or responsibility or focus that we never end those. Those are just something you want to keep in front of you to say, how am I doing about that?
Right.
So you may want to make sure, you may want to build in some sort of a checklist that you look at every 2 weeks, every 2 months, every 2 years. So how am I doing about accessing my professional network? How am I doing about what I need to be learning next?
Well, that's actually right on with, you explained it better than I did, but yeah, that's definitely one of my main motivations in my life, is to surround myself with individuals that are where I want to be.
Right. Well, cool. So you don't need to have a project about that. You just may want to keep that galvanized enough so that you can decide, hey, David, let's have another conversation, 6 months from now or 2 weeks
Cool.
from now. I don't know.
Perfect. Well, I will do that because I have your email address.
I'm fine with it. Come on. My mission is, before I end my life, is to have done the best I could to create a world where there are no problems, only projects.
That's awesome.
I'm happy to use all resources I can to make sure that happens. So happy to play. So that's one question. Got 2 more?
Well, that was a made up question on the spot. I still have the 3. What is the biggest lie in self-talk you had or currently struggle with?
That's a good question. Biggest lie in self-talk. I'm not smart enough, big enough, open enough to the powers that be to be totally successful about this huge mega project that I'm engaged in.
Okay. Second question. What brings you peace?
Oh, What brings me peace? Emptying my in basket to zero, engaging appropriately with people, um, actually engaging with people in a positive way that I feel like was constructive and part of my life purpose to do
Okay.
that. And, breathing.
I agree. Deep breathing is one of the things that in a stressful situation that I do to help recenter myself.
Yeah, well, it brings you present. Your breath is present, so it gets you out of past and future. And pain only and anxiety only come out of past and future, out of your ego.
Ooh,
There, you regret what you did, or you're afraid of what's going to happen. So if you get present, those things go away.
man, I'm taking notes like crazy over here. Um, here's a fun one. What's the best decision you've ever made?
Oh God, there's hundreds of them. What's the best one that I ever made?
Or your
Prob-
favorite?
yeah, probably to decide to write the book, Getting Things Done.
Awesome. Well, David, I appreciate your time, the wealth of knowledge that you have, and for everyone that's listening out there, not that I've ever written a book, but I've started and stopped a lot of them. And I just want to say thank you for the lessons and the life skills that you have, that you poured yourself out into this book, because it is absolutely changing the way people live their life. And I know it's positively affected me. And in my journey, I am grateful for that, because without you and individuals like you, I would not be the person who I am currently, or the person that I'm currently working to be as well. So David, thank you very, very much.
Hey, and thank you, Evan, for being who you are, because congratulations. That's how I got to where I am. Absolutely.
Awesome.
And by the way, just in case anybody wants to know, if they want to know any more about me or about what we're up to, gettingthingsdone.com is a place you can see me, and we do trainings about my stuff. And we now have partners all over the world. So we're now in 60 countries plus, delivering our trainings. And I put together a global summit of people who are champions of this work in the end of June in Amsterdam. So crazy idea for maybe some of you listening to this, but hey, come to Amsterdam, fabulous place where I live now. And June 20th and 21st, gtdsummit.com. You'll find that there. So if
And
any of you are interested in further stuff, those are places to go.
where do you want people to buy your book? From your website or through Amazon?
No, we don't sell books anymore. So we just through whatever your favorite bookstore is. Frankly, if you have a local bookstore, I love supporting the local bookstores. So,
Awesome.
great to go, get them to order the book if they don't have it.
Perfect. Well, David, thank you so much again for your time.
My pleasure, Evan.
Take care.